Hello and welcome to Unexplained Possibilities Podcast Live. I'm your host, Melvin the Crimson Taurus, and normally this is where I would say this is Neima the third-eyed mystic, but she's running a bit late today. So this is not Neima the third-eyed mystic. Instead, I'm going to introduce our guest tonight. And, before I introduce him, I do want to say that Neima was the one who put the show together. I was bumming it somewhere, and she took the reins, and she's like, Melvin, we're going to handle this right now. We're getting it done. And huge credit goes to her. So, way to go, Neima. It's kind of ironic you're not here yet, but you still get all the credit. Introducing our guest, he's a fitness trainer, public speaker, author, and immortal humanoid, which I quite like that title. Please welcome our guest, Josh Hewett.
Thank you very much. I connected on Instagram originally with Third Eye Mystic, and we were exchanging posts and information related to psychedelics and spirituality and higher awareness, and I received the invitation to come on the show and checked out some of your other podcasts, and it's great stuff. This is an area that I love talking about and just getting into to the chat tonight.
And Neima just told me she is here. So
there you go.
Yeah, wow, it kind of worked out, I suppose. So I used the word enlightenment a couple of good times, and it's a term that's millennia old. What is enlightenment?
Yeah, that's a hard one to get into, because I think it's like we were talking about when and we'll get into it a little later, some of the experiences I had and that others are having. Some of these experiences are beyond putting into words. It's experiential. It's not something you can just talk about. And I kind of feel like enlightenment is almost like that as well. Everyone will describe it differently. And even though I might say, I feel as though a couple of the experiences I had were enlightening experiences, opening up to extremely high levels of consciousness and awareness, very awakening. I feel like for me, the description of enlightenment suggests that there's been a permanent shift in your level of consciousness or awareness, such that you're able to live in a state of presence, living in the now, in a state of awareness, real awareness of what is. And it's in being a place of detachment or total acceptance of what is as well. And that is such that in this duality experience that we have on this planet, where there's contrast, so that we can experience, life, which is different from everyone else's individual experience. Enlightened, you're able to see the unity behind that. You're able to see the connectivity. You're able to see the oneness of everything. You're able to see that we are just a part of this constant existence. We're all part of that source energy. And I feel like when you can be in that state of acceptance, presence, higher awareness of what truly is, non-judgment, you'll also have a sense of bliss, or you'll be aware of the love that is really behind all of existence. And that's not really a bliss of suggesting that when you're enlightened, you're experiencing pleasure all the time. It's a bliss in that you're detached from suffering. You've left suffering behind. So I don't know if that's a really long description, but from the few people I follow that I feel like are enlightened individuals, it seems like there was that shift, not such as a awakening experience or individual experiences, but a permanent shift in consciousness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I get that. Neima, what about you?
Yeah, it's like basically leaving a fear-based mindset and into a loving one.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that, as far as mindset goes, is a disconnection or a disassociation with ego, which is, people have different ideas of ego, but I think how I like to understand it, or how it's been explained to me, is, and ego is very identified with our beliefs and our individuality and our separateness and our divisiveness. So ego needs to have an identity that is separate from others. And often to reinforce that ego identity, we need conflict, we need contrast, we need to have someone that we disagree with so we can be right and they can be wrong. And often if we're not aware of that ego identification, it rules us. We become, no, I'm right wing, I'm left wing, I'm religious, I have this belief, I have that belief, I'm on this side and you're on that side. And you really cover up your authentic self, which is connected to everything, and so that you can feed the ego's need to be separate. And I believe once you become enlightened, you really let go of that ego identification, and you really can take a step back and see that your beliefs and your thoughts and your prejudices and all of those, that the thinking part of your mind becomes just a tool that you can use upon demand, as opposed to it ruling you. You run it, if that makes sense. Because I think people talk about ego death, and I've had a couple of my experiences, which we'll get into. There was a complete ego death. I had no idea what that really meant until I had that experience. I'm like, wow, that's what it's like to be no thought, to have no recording mechanism or thought noise in the back of your head going on at all. And that's something different. And I can imagine what it must be like if you can live in that state of not having the thoughts constantly running.
It sounds a little bit like Zen, or this thing that in some Japanese folklore they call it the power of nothingness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no thought, power of nothingness. It's ego death. It's a number of different ways of looking at it. I think part of the way to look at it is not necessarily that our ego is bad and we need to get rid of it, but just using it for what it is. Like, as a role to play that helps us function in society and do our job and relate to other people and be able to understand where they're coming from. And you put on that mask when you need to relate to people. But if you think you are the mask, then we run into problems,
That's what the ego's for, though. I guess in a way we all wear a mask too, and sometimes we're afraid to take it off.
Mm-hmm. You become extremely vulnerable. Yeah.
That's the biggest issue.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly liberating to make yourself vulnerable like that by just removing those barriers and taking that mask off and being your authentic self. But it's also very frightening initially, even as we were talking about before the show, about when I posted my first video of my big psychedelic experience that I had, which was my first real awakening experience. This guy making a video live to the world, the interwebs.
Yeah, you know what? Let's actually get into that a little bit, because here you are. You're a fitness guy. You're a bodybuilder. I'm looking at your videos and everything. You're borderline the Hulk, and
well, okay, maybe maybe the mini Hulk. Okay, well, I'll take it.
Hey, just take it. All right, it's a compliment. And
you got it.
You come across a video where you're talking about your DMT experience.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to try DMT and get that spiritual awakening? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, what the hell, right? Where did that come from? It's like, let's talk about nutrition and exercise, and then let's blow our minds. It's right in the next video. I know it seems to be somewhat disconnected, or not to flow in sequence. But if you think about how I look at it, is I'm on a journey of health and wellness, and me realizing early on that the mind had played a huge role in our wellness, and law of attraction became very popularized and then Hollywoodized, and The Secret was great, but very a fluffy version of introducing energetics. And well, you know what, we needed to be easily digested by the masses, right? And then huge amounts of people completely misinterpreted. Oh, I just wish for something and I get it. Why am I not getting it? So of course, people miss the point. But at least for me, it started to get me to realize, wait, these are some really profound ideas that is an energy, and by what we resonate, we attract, and everything is a vibration, and we're a vibration. We're all energetic. And then I started to think, first it was purely psychology, like our minds, our mind power and energy projected through thoughts, which is, I realized by using my mind, I could start to improve my health and wellness performance in my body. So it was fine with my journey of improving my health and wellness. the brain is part of the body and the mind is an extension of that. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, something like, especially when I started introducing little bits of meditation into my lifestyle, I was like, wait, there's a consciousness or an awareness beyond the mind, bigger than the mind. And really their brain and your thoughts are just a tool, another sense in such a way that our consciousness, your whatever you want to call it, your soul or your presence or your whatever, your source, your spirit, uses the thoughts in your brain as another sense, just like touch and sight and smell and hearing and thought, thinking. I myself and so many other people are identified with the thoughts in particular as us. I think, therefore I am, so the famous philosopher said. And he was on to something, but I think the point was missed. It's like, yeah, we are constantly thinking, and our brain is our most incredible tool available to us, but it's still just a tool. And you know what made me really want to explore beyond meditation and breath work and law of attraction and all of that was I was watching and listening to some interviews with, I can't remember his name, one of the people who was on The Secret. I started to look into, okay, who are the people who are on this movie? Because some of them do have some really interesting ideas, and I followed their own work. And one of them was talking about ayahuasca. Through his ayahuasca experience, he was able to strip away all of this identity that he had developed through birth, and all of this white person with these beliefs who grew up with like these interests. These are my biases, and this is the way I am. That's taken away for him, and I think for many other who experience ayahuasca and DMT, which is the active psychedelic ingredient in the ayahuasca mix, is DMT. It's just ayahuasca with the way it's combined with the other plants. It's released you go into the experience more gradually, and it's more earthy. You're more connected with Mother Earth. Whereas DMT is like the pure extract. It's seconds. You're blasted. If you get enough of it into you and you're ready to surrender, you blast it off into these realms. Like,
yeah, you're going into space, all right.
Yeah, it's inner space or outer space, however it was. It's pretty profound. But so I was listening to his experience of ayahuasca, and I just listened. I was like, that's it. I said, that's it. That's what I want. I really need that. I need to take away. I just need to strip it all away and then come back into my experience, my physical experience, being able to look at it objectively, like to think, the belief that everything I took on is not me. I want to get down to my bare essence and then be able to look at it again. And it was years since then with looking, where can I do ayahuasca? I'm not going to travel to Peru. I'm not in that situation. I have a family right now, and it's just financially not feasible, and all the other reasons and after a few years, I decided, well, I've heard about DMT, and I said, that's something I can access relatively locally. It's going to happen. So I put it out there to the universe and talked to some other trainers who are into that sort of thing and other friends. And I was actually at a YouTube seminar, and one of the other YouTube people had a channel on psychedelics. I talked to her about it, and she said, oh yeah, I had my first psychedelic experience with this shaman, and referred me, and there it was. And it happened.
Now, so everyone can know, we are not saying go out and try DMT or any type of psychedelic. We're not promoting it. If you do so, you're doing that on your own. I won't say
Disclaimer.
I'm against it, but, let's just throw that out there real quick.
Hey, kids, don't do drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all information, I'm assuming, in this discussion is for discussion purposes, not recommendations.
Exactly.
And just the same way when I listened to someone talking about their experience, they didn't say go do it. They would just, this is what happened, and it resonated, and it was the path that I chose to take. And listen to your heart and follow a path that resonates with you and at a deeper level, like without assuming that there's a right way or a wrong way. Like now that I'm very, very passionate about waking up, I hesitate to get into this. Is a whole other thing, because my goal, I would say, if I have only a purpose in life, the ultimate purpose is to become fully enlightened, fully awake, fully aware, and live in that state of presence at all times. But in saying that, it's almost like it's a goal. It's like your ego wants to acquire things, stuff, and experiences. It's almost like your ego says, yeah, okay, now you're going to be the enlightened guy. That's the risk of whenever you try to say, I'm going to be enlightened. Now
You're
I'm
going to become the Buddha.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's like, in the end, and in one of my videos on after my experience, I also, the thing that became really crystal clear to me was we're all enlightened beings. We are already right here, right now. We're already there. We're already having this physical experience that we chose to have. We chose to come into this experience so that the universe or source energy or God could experience itself. And if you're only one, you cannot have that experience. You need other. You need to have unique expression of this source energy. So I feel like we came into this existence to experience something different, something that is an expression of a different experience. You have a different view or perspective of this existence than I do, and I learn from your view of that, and I learn from seeing how everyone else is functioning, and that's why we're all individuals, but we all still come from the same source. We're all part of that unity consciousness. So I feel like we're already there if we could only let ourselves be. But, easier said than done. So we feel like, at least for me, there's part of me that feels like I need to go through a process to get there. It's like people say I'm on a journey. It's like, where are you I'm on a spiritual journey, but where are you on a journey to? Inward, right? So where do you go? Where are you going to go? Where am I going? I'm already here. So it's like a mind fuck. It's like you want to get somewhere, but if you're really, when you get there, you realize you're already there. We're already here. We want to become something, but really all we're doing is stripping away all the extras. We're not becoming anything. We're letting go of the excess so that we can be truly what we already are. So it's almost like I want to learn all of these things and grow and have experiences, and I'm learning Kriya Yoga now, this meditation, which is into your third eye and crown chakra and become more connected spiritually. And I'm learning all of these things, but it's almost like all these things you learn and all of these experiences you have and everything, all the knowledge and extra stuff you do, it comes down to letting it all go, completely being here, letting your mind be quiet, and you realize that was the cosmic joke in my last DMT experience, 5-MEO experience. I came out just laughing my ass off because I realized to be what we already are. It's like we go through so much just to be ourselves. And if I really believe that in the bigger picture, if people were able to just let go, surrender to what is, we wake up. And thankfully I've been blessed to have moments of that clarity. I know what it's like. I know what it is, and that's my main purpose is to be able to live like that in a constant basis. And I guess the other thing is that we have so much entrained patterns and beliefs and grooved or ingrained
outside influences that they affect us whether we notice it or not. I mean, it's on a subconscious level at this point. And how do we get past those influences? How do you shut them out?
I mean, I guess sometimes it's not as easy as just saying, oh, I'm surrendering to everything that is, no matter what. And you're like, okay, that's easy enough, easier said than done, but then resistance comes up because you're so used to doing things a certain way. And you're right, outside influences definitely affect that, but also our brains are an incredible tool, but if we've been using them a certain way for years and years and years, you get certain neural grooves, like certain
it becomes habit.
It becomes a habit. And I think people that have become enlightened, they just grease that groove. They just streamline themselves to awareness. It's like the other neural patterns just fall away. But if we're not that, then we do the work. We remind ourselves, constant reminders to be here, be here now, let go of those thoughts that don't serve us, use our brain as a tool rather than a master. And that's what I feel like, before we get into specifically the DMT experiences, I almost feel like as powerful as it was for me and as powerful as psychedelics and meditation and breath work, and for some people it's Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, whatever it is, whatever method you're using to become awake and more present, or reach a higher level of consciousness or awareness, they're all just reminders to be here. Now, they're all reminders of what we already are. It's almost like another tool to help us learn how to let go and surrender to what is. So any one of them could be. It could be you could just be out in nature and just suddenly take in the beauty of it and realize, wow.
Taking a step back, slowing down, looking around. I always tell people, if they just take a little drive to a forest or something and just look around and just listen to it, and you will see and hear such beauty, and it's natural and it's here for us, and it hits you where it's like, wow, how could I have been missing this for so long? And it's relaxing, it's energizing. And, you know, for me,
absolutely,
it's a type of awakening where it's like, man, you know, I don't need to find happiness. Happiness is here. You know, what I've been searching for, it's right here. I just need to open my eyes and look at it.
Absolutely. I mean, nature, I think, is close to God as you can get. In some cases, it's how the power of stillness. Like, there's such profundity in silence and stillness. And I mean, even like just the sounds of nature, there's a silence that it comes from that is just connects you with everything. And if you can take that awareness that you get from being really connected and silent and still in nature, take that into your everyday experience and realize even that asshole at work that annoys the hell out of you is still an expression of nature and beauty. And like, he is another expression of source energy. Just, it's another note in this chorus of life that we're part of, you know. That's the challenge, is to realize that it's all beautiful and it all comes from the source of love, even the stuff we really don't like, because we're great at being present and aware and full of like compassion and higher consciousness when things are really smooth, like when we're in a very controlled environment and we're with people we love. And I think that's very important to remind ourselves by being around people that are on the same path and being in nature. But all of the stuff that we have a resistance to, can we be detached with that? Can we be in acceptance of that as well? That's a challenge, you know what I mean? And if we can be in that state, then we've really reached a place of higher awareness where we realize this is all part of it all has a purpose. It's all happening for a reason. It's all part of this human evolution, right?
I mean, I would hope so, but let me tell you, there are some people who really test my patience.
Yeah. And you're thankful for that, because we're thankful for those tests, right? Because how do we grow if we're not challenged and tested, right?
Yeah, exactly. Neima, she's over there like, oh yeah, because I have to put up with you, Melvin. No, but I do understand what you're saying, though.
Yeah, me, like I talked over in that. I've watched a lot of seen a lot of your posts on Instagram, and I really like your stuff and your point of view. Really, it seems, I was going to say, I really identify with the way you look at things, but I'm starting to realize that it seems that people sort of have reached a level of awareness or a certain higher consciousness. You all start to see things the same way, because there is once you see the truth, it's constant. That's what it is. You know what I mean? It's not like,
yeah.
Like, how do you look at that as far as awareness and being present versus?
No, I feel like everyone's getting on the same page lately, and it kind of trips me out, because I'm curious what's going to happen when we're all enlightened. Like,
yeah.
ever all be at the same point of thought process and not being so separated?
Well, I feel Melvin and I were talking a little bit about before we went live about that it feels as though, and maybe you can echo this, that there's an elevating of consciousness globally, that there seems to be a global awakening, that humankind's awareness overall over the planet in general seems to be raising. And we were talking about, well, yeah, but look at the news. I mean, the contrast is there as well, becomes more pronounced. And I feel as though smaller scale and a microcosm of that bigger awakening, every time there's been a shift as far as like the feminist movement, there was like, black rights, there was like all of these movements, like there was a pendulum that swung in almost the other direction. There was always this extreme shift. And it feels like as human consciousness is elevating, there's resistance to that in the other direction. There's some people are like, what the hell is going on? Like, I want to make America great again, like make it back the way it was before. When I was like, what the hell is so great about it before, man? But yeah.
People, they just don't like change, and we are resistant to change.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing that's constant is change, right?
Exactly.
That's the one thing that no matter what, there's change.
It's a juicy contradiction.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that's an important reminder is that as things are changing in the right direction, we're going to see more and more of these people that are just not ready.
It's like you said earlier, it's one of those tests. And I try to look at it like this. I don't know how the person was raised. I don't know their exact thoughts. But, I'll respect their beliefs or whatever. May not agree with them. And, just they have to go their own way and just find what helps them reach that type of unity. Sometimes it takes several lifetimes, you never know. If this may not be the life where they gain that acceptance or anything like that. It could be another life. They might be here this time to learn something else. Yeah,
exactly. This is the role they have to play in this lifetime, the lesson they have to learn. As much as
that's how I kind of see it.
Sometimes it's not easy, like we were talking about before, to accept that. These assholes are going to be, we got to let them learn their lesson on their own time. It's like, no, but come on. Can't you see you're being an idiot? But then we're playing into that same game, you know what I mean? So I like the analogy of a story someone told about, I'll tell it. Do you mind if I tell a little story to paint a picture?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this guy was busy doing some work on his computer, and his son was like wanted to play with him. And he said, okay, I'm going to buy myself some time. He's like, here, son, I'm going to take this newspaper, and there's a picture of the planet Earth on it. And he said, I'm going to rip this up into a few pieces, and you treat it like a puzzle, put it back together. When you put it back together, come back to me and I'll play with you. Okay, I bought myself some time here because the Earth is like so many different shapes and colors. It's going to be taking forever. He came back in like 5 minutes with it all taped up together. And he's like, how the heck did you do that? And he said, oh, well, on the other side of the paper, there's a picture of a man. And it was really easy for me to just piece the pieces together to make that. And so he's like, when you fix yourself, when you heal yourself, you heal the world. And so I really looked at it as an analogy, like the best thing we can do for this planet is to work on ourselves, do the inner work. And as we elevate our own energy, we become a better service to others. Even if you just are one of those people that chooses to live in a mountain and elevate your consciousness, although I would like to think of myself more as a bodhisattva, where you then come back into the world to help reach others who are ready. But even just doing that work in and of yourself and just going about your business, doing your job, but you're doing the inner work, you're serving the global consciousness, you're still doing the work. So that's a lesson for me, because as a trainer, I have a compulsion to fix others. I want to help others, definitely is coming from a good place, but I see people that have bad habits or are making themselves ill. And then now on a bigger scale, I see people who are making themselves sick energetically and psychologically by the way they think and live and view other people, and the us versus them mentality. And I want to fix them and tell them, no, show them, look at how I look at it. This is the right way. And that's something I need to, and let people be who they are. And if they come, by myself, living how I live and expressing myself and becoming the best, most authentic version of myself that I can, people will see that. And people, as you elevate your energy, you both seem to be very awake and aware people. You both probably have that experiences as you attract, or people are drawn to you who are on a very similar wavelength or who are working towards that. Yes?
Well,
I would agree completely.
Yeah. No, you see the contrast. The contrast is standing out more to you as well.
A little bit. We'll go into it another time.
All right, you're seeing some of the friction. You're getting some of the friction there. All right, that has its purpose too. But yeah.
I think everyone gets it from all sides, but it's learning to train yourself on what you're going to allow in your environment and in your atmosphere and around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree. And you if you're at a place where your own energy is strong enough, you've done enough work with yourself, enough inner work on people who carry a little lower energy or in a little negative place, and you can be present, allow them in, and not let them be a parasite or a vampire to that energy from you. Sometimes you can be of service to them, but if you're not ready for that, then you like you said, you have to be knowing who am I going to allow into my circle, right?
Right, and it's pacing yourself and knowing, okay, like this person's doing a little bit too much, or they're affecting me way too much, so I'm going to back off and let that chill out and go back to it later, or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we become more aware of what the right action is as we become more still and calm and present, and the more connected we are with our authentic self, the less we question ourselves. Our intuition, which is, I believe, the voice of our true self.
Almost like cooking a hamburger.
How do you draw that? It's all instinct?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. When you cook a burger, you of course you season it and everything, but there is such thing as over season it, so you don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put it on the grill, or if you're frying, whatever, we'll say the grill for this instance, you don't flip it back and forth, left and right. No, you leave it on that side and let it do its thing. There's no need for you to interrupt it and ruin it and do too much, and it just ruins everything.
Mm-hmm. You let the process do itself, and you with as little intervention on your part as possible, kind of.
Exactly. So I'm sorry, I'm always thinking about eating. So.
Mm-hmm, yeah, me too. And I've been actually, I would say. I know that was an analogy, but it ties into a funny thing as far as becoming more aware. I'm starting to realize some of the things that are really attaching me to, because I think part of the thing of liberating your consciousness is to become more detached and less driven by our material world. That doesn't mean we don't go out and do our job and make money and save and have experiences we want and be with friends and family and carry on your responsibilities here, but if you're attached to it, if you need to have that money and you feel like I'm not whole or can't be happy until I have this thing or this experience, then it'll hold you down basically. And I've found food was actually one of those things for me. I've realized I have a very good willpower and discipline over my eating habits and my body, but it's pure will that has me not eat a smorgasbord at every meal, because I love the experience of good food so much. And that's fine to have that experience, but if it's a compulsion, if it's an unhealthy addiction, like people have drug addictions and sexual addictions and everything, if food is my addiction, then it's ruling me. I'm not enjoying the experience for its sake. So I've actually that's one of the things I'm working on. I'm doing some days of fasting. I'm doing intermittent fasting. I'm practicing mindful eating very slowly and being aware of how the food makes me feel and feeling the nutrition in the food, how it energizes me or makes me sluggish. And so that's been an exercise in and of itself, just from day to day, like something that you could take out of your regular daily experience, like an interaction with another person or an interaction at work. Just eating can be an awakening. It can help elevate your consciousness in itself. Like just being mindful in every experience like that. And I think it's important to see where we're really attached and driven and addicted in our life experience. What do I need to keep doing? And can I let go of that and just enjoy it for itself with detachment? You know what I mean?
I actually do know what you mean, because I had a little inner talk with myself about that.
Oh yeah, you were saying you're getting into the fitness little routine too recently, right?
Yep. So
awesome.
It makes total sense to me. Let's move on here to, I'm going to butcher this name again. I thought I was going to sound intelligent and say it correctly, because the first time I said this, I butchered it, and I'm probably going to butcher it again. But dimethyltryptamine.
DMT,
Yes,
the spirit molecule.
that's as close to it as I'm gonna get.
Yeah,
With
better
that
than I
name
would have.
anyway.
Yeah.
Neima, you've had, well, I don't know if I could say experiences or lack of experiences with DMTs.
Yeah, I have no idea why. It just has, I've never had a breakthrough experience smoking DMT. And I think the last time I tried it, I got really close, but nowhere near what I want, where I wanted to go.
I'm alone in that.
You know, yeah, that's still a work in progress. I wanted something, I just wanted to break through, get out of this world and learn something, but I feel I learn a lot more with magic mushrooms for sure.
Yeah, they're amazing as well. Different, but yeah, for sure. Mushrooms are that's my staple. That's my go-to like DMT is something that for me, at least with the profundity, like how profound and overwhelming and just powerful experience was, it's not something that I would want to do more than annually kind of thing. But mushrooms are something that...
Yeah,
Sorry?
magic mushrooms is like an all-day thing, and then DMT is like a quick in and out, 10 minutes tops.
Yeah, but for me, it was just so, I can't even put the words to it, but let's just say intense. And the other thing is, even though at the time, consciousness time, the earth time or whatever, clock time was within 20 minutes or so, in the experience for myself, there's no measurement of time. It could have been an eternity. It could have been weeks and weeks as far as the experience was for me. I came back and it was like my body was the same, but my mind had months of other worlds or other realms. Or
I actually have a bit of a theory on that, because you know how pretty much all living things produce DMT naturally, right? And they say that before we pass away, or like right on the brink, our body releases the most amount of DMT. And
at birth.
Oh, and at birth. So my thinking is it's something that actually connects us to parallel dimensions or universes, realms, whatever you want to call it, higher spiritual planes. I think that's something that connects us to it. And I almost want to do an experiment on this, not necessarily with the DMT itself, but people who had near-death experiences. Like my friend AP, the alien photog, he's the guy I was telling you about before we started recording.
Yeah.
And he had a near-death experience. And a lot of people who have near-death experiences, they say, I saw the tunnel of light, and after that, I was in heaven. I was looking around, and I think I saw Jesus, and he looks Arabic.
Yeah.
And
that was him then. Yeah, you saw him.
Yeah, he said he heard voices, families. It was something. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay, and eventually he came to, and he was in a coma. And it's a story to that. I'm gonna save it for another time. But he came to, and he was just blown away. His mind was awakened to something bigger, and like I want to see if someone away from the U.S. without the influence of Christianity, if they have a near-death experience, what would they see? Would they see things from the religious influence in their culture, or would it be something similar? The white light, the tunnel, the pearly gates, St. Peter, Jesus, whoever. And if so, why is it the same? Or because if it's the same, then that it won't mean that it's a different realm or anything, but it could mean that there's some type of connection, and we are indeed seeing a different realm. And I truly believe that DMT is a way it's a way for us to peek behind the veil and see what we're not seeing, perhaps to see where we came from originally or where we're possibly going to go.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I have no question about that, having experienced it, that it has that potential. You touched on a couple of things there. First of all, sorry, how do you pronounce your name properly again? Neima, sorry. Yes, so for the one thing, as far as tried DMT and then not having a breakthrough, and why that might be, and relative to others who have had this completely mind-blowing experience. And then touching on near-death experiences, which is a really poignant topic as well. Do you mind if I just sidetrack a little onto, you touched on religion, and people who have a particular religious bias may influence their experience. You're saying, what if people who didn't have a religious perspective, what would their experience be? And you can definitely, I think Google will tell you, like, no religious background at all have had very similar near-death experiences, as far as the tunnel leading to the white light with on the other side there's this bliss and oneness, and they're religious, then you see that as heaven. And there are entities that may guide you there. And if you tend to have a particular bias towards one belief system, you may identify them as, oh, it was Jesus, or oh, it was Buddha, or oh, it was whatever. But I think it's really not arbitrary, but it doesn't matter what your belief system is. Once you reach that level, it's the same thing. It's the same tunnel that takes you to that light, which is pure love or unity or universal consciousness or source energy, whatever you want to call it. The source of all, where we came from, which I guess if you're religious, you're going to call it heaven. It definitely is a common experience for people with near death, and it certainly is something, if you get to a breakthrough experience with DMT, and definitely with 5-MEO-DMT, to have a very similar of consciousness, but becoming one with all consciousness experience without dying. And this was the one realization I had after my NN-DMT, which is like the regular DMT, was it felt, first of all, it was just frightening a little bit initially because it was so intense. But once I got to this point of, it was almost like it just was showing me through all these dimensions. Like, it opens your third eye chakra, your pineal gland becomes so stimulated. It conscious into your awareness to all these other dimensions. Like you said, it lifts the veil, and there's no way for me to relate it. In my video, and maybe after you post this, you can put a link to the DMT videos so people can get more in depth. I'm not going to go through describing the entire experience, but incredible display of sacred geometry, these alternating patterns and spirals, geodomes expanding, and this tunnels that took me through gateway after gateway, and it was past a point of being able to have thought around it. I didn't know I was me. I was not Josh. I was not a man. I was not a person. I was just a pure awareness, just pure consciousness taking in this experience, and to the point where I just became part of this experience. I was just part of the energy that was there. And it's so hard to describe that, because I had nothing within my human awareness and existence so far in this lifetime, since birth, I assume, that I could relate it to. Like, it's like, I can't put it into words, because I was not me anymore. I was just energy. I was just experience. I was just a pure awareness of what was happening, and or knowledge or awareness was being downloaded into my consciousness through shapes and colors and energy bursts, like chunks of data, kind of. Like, it wasn't like, and I didn't see entities. Many people see entities in their experience, but for me, it was just, I felt like I went through so many levels and surrendered to the experience to the point where whiteness, that pure unity, and then I have no memory of what happened next, except for when I came back to physical awareness. I had all of these sensations. We are all one. The source of all is love, and we are all this unity consciousness. Energy is basically love. There is no real time. There's only right now, this present moment that is constantly changing and shifting, which gives us this illusion of time. The movement that is happening, the change that's happening, gives us illusion of time passing, and we have clocks and everything so that we can function in this material existence. And the duality of dark and light, and man and woman, and black and white, and everything good and bad is so that the universe can experience itself. But it all comes back to oneness, or unity. All of these things just came to me from like, this is it. This is how it is. And don't sweat the small stuff. There's all these things like, why don't get caught up on your to-do lists, and so liberating and powerful. And that stayed with me for weeks. And it's still always experience stays with me, but this is where the reminders come in. This is where meditation matters, and where spending time in nature helps bring you back to that place. But that shifted everything. But we have, interactions and responsibilities and stuff that, for me at least, tends to pull me back into earthly, focusing too much on what's coming next and my what happened before, as opposed to being really present. And that's part of the process. That's part of the work. If I can diverge right into that to my 5 MEO experience while I'm on a roll here.
Yeah, go right ahead.
It's let that train of thought flow.
Frog, right? That's from the frog?
Yeah, that's the toad medicine. Yeah, that's the toad that's in, it's an American desert that these toads are, I think there's a couple places on the planet there, but they're prevalent there.
I know there's one in a spot in Mexico where they get them, and they'll extract DMT from them, and they help people who are addicted to drugs come off of it. They'll give it to them, and it works.
Yeah, both forms of DMT have been known to cure addictions and to cure like alcohol, but at least give the person such a profound sense of awareness that they can become disconnected with that addiction or that attachment that they had. They're like, they can see it for what it is. And it is that kind of, it has the potential to be that kind of mind shifting, awareness altering experience where you're like, wow, this physical experience is the game I'm playing here temporarily for actually a very short, well, we're talking about time again, but in the overwhelming scheme of things. And our source energy, our soul or spirit will rejoin universal consciousness, and we'll keep coming back to play the game. And how I feel it is, and I'll say this, I know nothing. All I know is my own experience of, that's part of why I'm here as an individual, unique expression of universal consciousness, like we all are. All we can really know is our own observation and awareness of it, and our own consciousness, which is the beauty of it. But this is why I think, religions are great. And if you initially are on a journey of trying to look into some ideas and think outside of just pure material existence, it might give you some structure, but you need to break down that structure and just you look inward, not outward, to find this true awareness. And DMT really takes you in deep. And at the same time, I think you talked about getting out of your body, or getting away from the world. Even though it was like me going inward to my consciousness, it seemed like then I was this earthly realm. Like I went through all of these different layers of alternate or different realities or existences, or just different energetic levels that were there that we just can't normally see with our regular consciousness. And I think people who are empaths and or like more like you're maybe perhaps yourself, we have your third eye is very active, or you're a mystic, you can start to see certain levels of that, like auras around people, and you can start to see perhaps have connections to more the spirit world. And this sort of, thankfully, our pineal gland and certain parts of our brain are very receptive to the very small amounts of this. It gives us access to that, whether temporarily or permanently shifts things. And so I do believe that the 5 MEO, that whole rigmarole up the chakras or up these different levels of energetic experience, it takes you right to oneness, unity consciousness. So there was really no visual. There was no, again, it's even harder to describe because there's nothing to describe, because it puts you into that unity consciousness where there's complete ego loss. There's no thought. There's no recording mechanism going on in your brain to have an image to talk about, or a thought or a sight or a thing. All that is inhaled enough of it was a white light and a sense of like a waterfall of energy just washing over me. In seconds, I dissolved into that wash of energy, which felt like love, pure love energy. The essence of the universe washed me, and I dissolved into it, and I was gone. There was nothing until I came back to physical experience. And the first thing, and you'll see in my video, which I didn't remember until several days after, because I guess it was still buried in my unconscious. The first thing upon awakening, and I confirmed with the shaman I was with, because I called him, I said, is this a dream I had out of that, or this really happened? I sat up, grabbed him by the shoulders, and I was just intensely looking at him, and my memory of it is very, because I was still in that state, I guess, coming out of and I grabbed him, and I was looking at it, and it didn't feel like my voice was saying it. It felt like it was coming through me, like 1,000 voices chanting through me, like energy just moving through my body. And I was channeling through to him. I was just shouting, love, 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 over and over, like as if I had to move that energy through me. It was just so incredibly overwhelming that when I came back to consciousness, or physical consciousness, awareness of my body and the world, it just channeled whatever I could do. That's the first thing that came to my voice and my experiences was love. And it was intense in and of itself. It was almost, the word love was coming out of my mouth, but it was like a vibration in my body, like vroom, vroom, vroom. And after I just channeled that to him, and this is what he does for his living. So he was very calm and just with a very serene smile, just receiving and just sitting there in front of me. And it's just amazing. Now looking back, it's just that kind of experience would make life, made life worth it in and of itself. I can always go back to that and just have that sense of that no matter what shit comes your way, it's all comes from the source of love, created all of this. So it all has a purpose. The only physical experience that I could even relate, even closely to come touch it, was the birth of my daughter. Like being there when she was born and holding her against my chest was as close to an earthly experience as I could have to that, but still it doesn't touch it. And I don't mean that to diminish. It's just that there's nothing like it. And then I passed out once I had spent that and channeled it. And I remember waking again, which is what I remembered immediately after the experience, and just exhausted and just lying there, but pleasantly exhausted. Like you just gave everything that you just up to, your heart chakra was wide open. And first things I said was, I just want to love more. Like if I had anything to do in this life that I really want, I just want to love more. I just want to be love, experience love, receive it. And looking back on that, is like, why not? Like if you had one thing that matters more than anything else, wouldn't that be like the ultimate? I mean, it's like the most powerful source there is. And if you can find that in everything you do, come from a place of love and compassion and with an open heart, people are going to come from that source of love and compassion. It's not your ego. It won't be my ego that wants to help fix people. It will be my true authentic self wanting to be there to serve them in whatever way is appropriate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense, and I can't disagree with you. And you will most likely attract people who want the same thing to your life as well, which is always a positive.
Yeah, exactly. And people who resonate, even if, like these experiences, I'm describing it completely openly is what I have, but if people have no reference towards this, as I said in my video too, some people will be like, whoa, that guy's gone real weird now. Like the trainer, it used to be the trainer that I could go to for nutrition and training advice. And now what's he talking about? What the hell is universal consciousness? But, and a discussion like this is why I really love these opportunities to talk about this, because this is specifically what this channel is about, these sort of things. So what a liberating opportunity to just be completely authentic and share an experience which otherwise may not have an avenue to share. You know what I mean?
Yep. All credit goes to Neima. However, unfortunately, she's having technical difficulties, so she had to drop out.
Okay.
So yeah, unfortunately.
We would give it to her for setting it up. At least that's for sure. And it was nice to briefly connect, and I'd love to connect again at another time and with Neima's and hear a little bit more about both of your experience as well. The DMT, that's where I felt as mind-blowing as the journey of all the psychedelic imagery was along the way. When I reached that state of calm oneness, of nothingness, which is part everything really, it was the most enriching and awakening experience I could have. And so I think it's almost good to be able to surrender if the opportunity comes, and if one is open, to surrender to that nothingness or that oneness or that unity experience, in addition to looking for forms, like material or outside external forms for our guidance. And that, yeah.
Could that also be a double-edged sword, though? Because you experience something so profound, you want to experience it again, you want to search for it, and that leads you to neglecting some of the other things, some of your other responsibilities, even though, they may not be the best responsibilities in the world, but how we make a living and how we deal with things currently, we have to stick to it. So
yeah, that's like a spiritual bypass. That's where people become head in the clouds so their feet aren't on the ground, sort of thing. And that can definitely happen. And again, some people have their lifetime that's meant to be for them. It's meant to be completely engulfed in the the experience of their spiritual side. But I do believe that the ultimate expression of, or like becoming enlightened, would give you such an awareness and a connection with not only your higher self and universal consciousness, but also an understanding of this material physical world, that you can function very efficiently here without becoming too attached and identified with it. You can realize, I'm here to play a game. It's a very important game, but I'm not going to take it too seriously. I'm not going to get too caught up in it. But I can play my role in this game, and I can do my good work. And I realize that there's some very important things that I can do while I'm here, but not to get too wrapped up in it. So that suggests that if you completely neglect the game altogether and say, no, I just want to have these otherworldly experiences. I just want to have connection just to this spiritual thing and escape. I want to escape. I want to get away. You're missing the point. Why the hell did you come here? You came here for a purpose and an intention. Like it's like the Zen Buddhists have said. There's an expression where before enlightenment, gather water, doing your day-to-day physical things, like you said, responsibilities, and then after enlightenment, you chop wood and gather water. Like, well, what? Well, what's that point of that? Well, but then you completely have a different experience of it. You're not maybe attached to it. You still do your physical things in this world. And in some cases, that may mean when you have a different level of consciousness, you may decide, I don't want to do this type of job anymore. I want to change my direction. I want to serve people in a different way. I have a different calling that I choose to follow now. But you still do your physical things in this world and relate in this physical form. That's the point of having this physical experience. It's not to get out of it. Be aware while you're here and play the game. That's how I see it.
That's a good way of seeing it. Well put as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it takes some of the pressure and seriousness off of it. If you can see, if using the word game is how I like to see it, but not to diminish the importance. That's why I always say the important game, that you don't take too seriously, but you play all out. Like, we're going to be here. I'm going to go all out in this physical experience while I'm here, but I see it for what it is. I'm not going to get wrapped up in it. If my player gets finished, if there's obstacles and there's shit to deal with, that's part of it. Got to go through those things in the game still. But you're coming from a place of playing it, being detached from it, not get too wrapped up in it, but really giving it your heart while you're here. You connect really well from the heart with the other players in this game. And recognize, with some humor but compassion, that other people don't realize it's a game. They're really taking it seriously. It's really stressing them out. And they're really getting wrapped up in this game. And they're like, this is all there is. It's only the game. And there's nothing else. And you can look at them and maybe you can be an example to them of like, hey, come on. Hey, we're playing this game together, but man.
Calm down.
Play hard, but yeah, it's a fucking game, man. Chill a little bit. And maybe sometimes they're like, holy shit, yeah, you're right. Oh, what a weight off. Now I can keep playing, but I don't have to get... So... but some people will be like, what are you talking about, man? This is all there is. And then all you can do is, admire how seriously they're taking it and say, wow, that guy's really taking it seriously. I guess that's his role. He's totally identified with his role. He doesn't see the player behind it. But I think that's, in the end, if we can have that awareness in our day-to-day experience, become very liberated, and it becomes a very enjoyable process, the good and the bad, and realizing that the dark shit that happens to us is a huge opportunity for learning and growth as well. And that's not always easy. That's something I'm getting better at recognizing too. Walking into my challenges and facing my fears is integral towards becoming more aware, becoming more evolved consciously. And as opposed to just chasing the pleasures and the good stuff in life, it's like some of the stuff that we push back and don't want to face, walk into it. We got to look it right in the eye. Look our demons and our dragons right in the face. And then rather than conquering them as in the hero's quest or the stories of going out and battling our demons, we embrace them and we send love to them, and and then we release them. Then it's not by resisting and by or turning away from or trying to run away from them that we conquer them. That's getting into a whole other discussion, but and this stuff can all be read about. And now that I'm after my DMT experience, I've been avidly reading and watching documentaries and going to workshops and seminars and seeing the synchronicities, like the same message being shared in different languages. And this will get into religion. I think many religions had an enlightened individual like Jesus or Buddha or Yogananda. There's different through history that had the epiphany, whether it was brought on by or meditation or psychedelics. I do believe that throughout history and ancient civilizations had spiritual leaders that were given awareness through psychedelics, cactuses and mushrooms that they were introduced to, and that opened their awareness.
It's possible, you know?
Yeah, I think, and that's again, another discussion, but like I've read references to, but either way, these enlightened individuals shared their message and other people took it on and they didn't, and they put it into words and texts, and as soon as you say it, it's kind of half the meaning is lost, and as soon as you put it into words, it's even more diminished, the profundity of it and the essence of it. And then you interpret those words and translate it, and you try to apply a structure to it and say, well, to get there you have to do these steps and these rules, and it becomes very fundamentalist. And then people realize there's power behind these lessons, and they use it to control and influence people, and you get churches and religions set up.
Yep, and that's where the downfall happens.
Yeah, so there's some truths in many religious beliefs. How I look at it is every religion has some nugget of truth in it, so I believe in none of them. I would not identify myself with any one specific belief system, because you're in the process of doing that, blocking out or saying no to all of the other belief systems. And if there's some truth in all of them, why would you ignore 99% of them to follow one?
Exactly.
And then embrace the misinterpretations and limitations and limiting beliefs that are inherent within that system as well, because no system is going to get you to a state of enlightenment. And ultimately, they may be a signposts towards something, but you have to look inward and find that awakening within yourself, because ultimately being present here and now and without the noise of your brain telling you what rules to follow and everything, that's where the awakening is going to come, and then the universe opens to you.
Okay,
but so there's Yep, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead and finish. I'll ask you after you're finished.
Yeah, no, just related to religions, I would say that it depends on what level how deeply you get into the religion and how much you internalize it and look within with prayer, really deeply connect to that voice within yourself and realize that we're all God. God is everything. God is that source energy, universal consciousness, versus a man on a cloud who makes rules for me to follow. So it depends on how you interpret it and where you go with it. Religions may have a point to get us on that path. But if you're like, I'm this religion and you're wrong because you're that religion, boom, immediately you cut yourself off from the connectivity and unity of us all. You immediately created division and duality and contradiction, and you're basically shutting down, if you keep with that mindset, any opportunity for you to become awake and aware. Yeah. As soon as you start to have resistance to someone else because I'm right and they're wrong, that's it. You know that's it. You're really limiting yourself. So yeah, that's my only thought around religion. Not that it's bad, but it could limit one.
Again, I don't disagree with you. I've said something similar to that in past shows, and I can't disagree. of course, sometimes people who listen, they don't necessarily hear that. They hear you attacking their beliefs, unfortunately. So,
yeah, well, their ego hears it, and becomes threatened because I'm very identified with this belief system, this political alignment, this race, this background in my culture, this country. So if you say anything against, or that I could interpret as being against, then my ego's identification with that is threatened, and I must reinforce it. But as soon as you realize, I'm getting a little bit of a rise out of him saying the way I do things, the ultimate right way, just my ego being real threatened, but let me hear what he's saying. You can disconnect from your ego's need to defend and be right, and you can be open and I like to say, realize I don't have to be this or that or up or down or right or left. I can just be here and experience life as it is and not need to be against one thing or for one thing. I can just go through my life sharing my love and compassion and helping to elevate this consciousness without fighting something. It's better to be, I think, to support as that you're passionate about and be for, rather than to say I'm against something else. Like, rather than anti-war, it'd be better to be pro-peace. And we have to be like anti-hate rather than be pro-love. Because as soon as you resist something, you add power to it. So even the Bible, they say, resist not evil. And there are certain quotes like, when you stare into the abyss, you can become part of the abyss. So if you're fighting monsters, you become a monster, basically.
Yep. I mean, you have to, though. How do you kill a monster? By becoming one. Right. I mean, yeah, unless you face that monster and then you give it love and release it and realize that that's just a dark side of yourself that your shadow self that needed to be, awareness needed to be given to it. And then you release it and you focus on the light, if that's what your purpose is. And I think it's also like resist, that which you resist persists. It's it ties into law of attraction and everything as well. So this whole I'm against something else because I'm for this, I think that will diminish over as human consciousness evolves. I think we won't need to put ourselves in boxes anymore and say I'm with this belief system and you're with that. I think it'll just be a little bit less defined and fundamentalist, and it'll be more about being aware of how things really are, rather than saying I want to believe that it's only this way. Yeah, it's just one of those things that take time.
Yeah, it takes time, but there is no such thing as time. Remember? No. Yeah, you're right. There is. Yes, it does. It is happening. It definitely. And I think just to tie in on as a bit of a tangent, but even though Neima, is that right? Am I saying her name correctly?
Oh, believe me, you're saying it way better than I did when I first tried to say it, so you're good.
I apologize if I butchered it, but just to touch on when she's saying with the DMT, and hopefully she can listen to this after. I'm sorry I don't get to speak to her directly regarding this, because I think it's such an amazing opportunity to have very profound experience with DMT, and I'm sure the other mushrooms as well at higher doses I've had experience with mushrooms at one point in nature in the cottage, and boom, it caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it because I've done it several times. And this one time I had to sit down and just close my eyes and just go to this journey with the sacred geometry, where I saw what seemed to be a goddess or a being with many, many eyes. It was just mind blowing. It touched me on the forehead and I got to a point of that white light experience where my body dissolved into didn't have a defined border to my body. It became like I'm part of this chair and the sea, and then my daughter had come in while I was in that experience, and I had sunglasses on because my eyes were tearing, so I was just it was pouring out of me. So my wife was there to sort of watch that no one came around while I was working through this, and then my daughter had come, and it was my birthday by chance, and she had come into the room to say happy birthday. I said, oh hey honey. I was still aware of my surroundings, which is very different from DMT. I had no awareness of the room or anything around it. I was gone, right? Whereas this, I was able to, if I would just sit and go with it, focus on my third eye or my crown chakra, and I became one with everything. But then I was also able to sit up and be aware of my surroundings with mushrooms. My daughter came in and gave me a hug. She's like, "Happy birthday, Daddy." And I was like, "Oh, hey, honey, I'm just having a nap." I didn't want her to, she's 8, so it's beyond her. I'm not something I'm going to expose to right now, but, and when she hugged me, it was the most incredible experience. There was involved into me. There was no border line between me and her. It was just, her energy was my energy, and it was just that connection and love. And it just, in that moment, just made me really realize on a very fundamental level, we are all connected. We are all, and not just as humans, trees, life, everything around us in this creation force. And if we can see ourselves and everyone else, and in nature and animals and everything, see that we're an extension of them and vice versa, what a powerful experience. It's not diminishing oneself, it's expanding oneself. It's just, and I also had this incredible sense of how powerful of a creator we are. Like we are co-creators of this reality that we are in the midst of experiencing. We have the power within us to shape our experience and attract and shape our what is happening in this reality, if we're only become aware of that. And that was from mushrooms.
That's what Neima always talks about too, how we're our own creators, and if we can visualize it, we can create it, and it's going to happen. So
absolutely. And it's beyond just the material thing of like wish for it and you get it kind of law of attraction thing. It's just about letting go of the resistance, completely surrendering to the moment, and what you want to attract and what you want to materialize and manifest in this reality. You also need to be detached from, which is very tricky. Like, how bad do you want it? Well, if you want it so bad, you almost like you're resisting it because you need it. Just allow it to come rather than force it to come. And it's a life. It's much more liberating, but it's much less forced and struggling and resisting. Yeah. But we're getting back to the DMT. I would just say these two big things. I would wish I had been able to ask her, maybe if she was holding the pipe herself with her or someone else helping her with that. Because with DMT, at least from my 2 experiences, I had to have someone holding the pipe so that I could breathe in, because with the 5-MeO, there was only the one breath that you get to take in, you're gone. It acts within seconds. But with the NN-DMT, I had to get multiple breaths in. 5-MeO was like 5 times stronger than regular NN-DMT. But so halfway through my breath with the 5-MeO, if I was trying to hold that thing myself, I'm gone. Like he was there to help hold the pipe with his hand behind my back so he could ease me onto the mat, because my body I left physical awareness. And with the DMT, the NN-DMT, it was after my 3rd breath, everything became like my hands went limp to my sides, and I was just looking at her. I was like, wow, this is really second. Her face started to become pixelized and turn into a sort of an ancient archetype of what her face was, and then it blended into the background surroundings, and I'm like, wow, this is really powerful stuff. Hey, she's take another breath, keep going, you gotta keep taking, because if you didn't get me to take the breath in soon enough, I'm gone. I would not be able to respond to the breathe in. And so I got a 3rd and then a 4th, and I could still hear in the like kind of a faint recollection of her, keep breathing, but I'm like, I don't know where that's coming from or what those words mean. I don't know who I am, and this is way beyond what I thought. I got to get out of here. I can't let this happen. I'm dying. And then I was like, wait a minute. Part of my thoughts are still going. I'm battling with myself, and my ego is like being diminished. And it's like your ego's dying, so you think you're dying. And some part of me just was able to say, it's okay. I wanted to be here. I just remembered whatever happened, I didn't remember where I was or what was going on, but I said, I choose. This is my choice. And then that was enough for me to say, okay, it's okay. And boom, as soon as that thought entered my head, boom, gone through a gateway, and then there was no thoughts. It was just an experience of these. There's no words associated with it. There's imagery. And then it went past that from my final breakthrough. Like I said, no imagery even. It was just this oneness. Now, factors are that you get in enough of the medicine, you inhale enough of it that you reach a breakthrough potential. The second factor being you are in a place that you are ready to surrender completely or let go completely to that experience. So if you're by yourself inhaling it, I guarantee, unless you're extremely sensitive to it, that once you get a couple breaths in and you're getting to that point, like, what? And then you will let your pipe will drop, your hands will drop to your sides of the room. So you'll be a couple minutes in that, oh, this is a psychedelic, and you'll come back saying, okay, that was pretty trippy, but no breakthrough. So you need someone else there to help guide you and to encourage you to keep breathing. And you need to make sure that you're completely inhaling with big, deep inhaled breaths, holding it in, keep it in. You exhale, you're ready to take that next breath. Get as much of that in before you go away, before you blast off as possible. So that would be one thing that I would ask her is like, and were you able to continue breathing past where you would on your own volition, like really? Secondly, if you know, I got 5 good deep breaths of really powerful DMT, and I'd be like, wow, okay, that's, then I would say it's almost like whether you wanted to or not, or whether you're swimming or not, if you got in like that much full, deep, inhaling it, ingesting breaths, you're going, like you're gone. Once you blast off, then it's a matter of, and you may be conscious or unconscious of it, to surrender to it is if, no matter, even if you're a very enlightened person or like very aware or like very into spirituality, and there's still a really big part of yourself that's strongly ego attached or just not ready to let go. It just does not want to release something in this physical experience that you're attached to. You can resist that even within the experience. You could be at some level of seeing these other dimensional planes, but not quite ready to just completely blast off or release into letting go of like everything. And I hear so many stories of entities and like mind-blowing journeys and all of these things. And I believe, like you said, it does lift the veil to these other dimensional, interdimensional, or maybe just otherworldly. Here, they're present here in our existence, but at a different level energetically than we can normally see. These different more highly evolved beings or entities, which can be great sources of enlightenment to us and give us messages and let us sort of see how our world works and let us see a little peek outside the matrix, so to speak. And that has its value, but creations of unity, they're still generations from source. They're still not it, if you know what I'm saying. So that's where that breakthrough, that ultimate breakthrough, I think, is just to say, as amazing as the light show is, as cool as it is to interact with other entities, can you look past that and release it and not get caught, not get too distracted by the show and say, I want to be, I want the ultimate, I want this, and like, I want to be one with God. And when you can just release to, I don't need any distractions, and just, once you've inhaled enough, surrender completely to the experience. Good for me, and that was my first, I almost had nothing reference. You know what I think might have been part of the awesomeness of it, part of the way that I was able to do that was I had very little psychedelic experience before that. I think I'd done mushroom once in my 20s or something, and I had no reference. I didn't know what to expect. I had no resistance to it at all.
So it may have helped you a little bit.
Maybe. I had there was no fear going into it. It was just like I wanted it so bad. I was at a point where my life is perfect for all intents and purposes. I have a beautiful, awake, aware wife who I love and I connect to, and my daughter is amazing. She's an angel, I swear to God, in human form. And I'm doing what I love as my career. I'm helping people in the fitness industry, which is just something I would do anyway if I didn't make money on it. And I live in a beautiful house in Barrie, this city, which has a great sense of community and nature. And when we moved from Toronto, I'm like, this is it. And every little change I make, I was like, why am I freaking stressed still? What's missing? Like, what am I going to just get the next thing? I could make more money. We have debt and we have mortgage, and it's maybe that once my mortgage is paid, then I'll be happy. No, once I get this more things, then once I get a better car, then once I get, you know the game, right? You know how the trappings of society can hook you like that, right? And I think a lot of us never wake up out of that, what I would call playing the game. We take it so seriously that we think that the game is it. That's life. We have to make more money. We have to get more friends, more prestige. And we never escape that. We never look past that. And that's where I was finding that no matter how much I've read and meditated and tried to center myself, I keep getting in this funk. Like I needed to know what my purpose was. And so my DMT, I connected with DMT to find out my purpose. And I came out laughing at that, saying, wow, how small for me to think that we're here for my purpose. we choose our purpose, but if there was any kind of purpose as far as our existence, ultimately it's to become more aware, it's to achieve that state of ultimate awareness, from which everything becomes very clear regardless. So getting stuff and doing things here is, like I said, it is important, but there's something way beyond that. So I guess for those who are listening through this whole diatribe, which I'm sure gives some interesting things for people to ponder, it's beyond thought, it's beyond things, it's beyond entities, it's beyond aliens giving you information, which all of it is valuable and important, but it's the enlightenment would bring you to this place and connectivity and unity and consciousness beyond all of that, where you're just part of the source of all that is love. Everything came out of that one source of creation. And if you can just I really truly believe that with and without drugs and DMT and all these substances, that it is available to all of us, as our human machinery is able to channel that energy to our consciousness, that we can connect to that source. I think just things like DMT give us that fast track, or give us it intentionally. Our bodies are designed to be able to process DMT, like you said, at death and I was like saying at birth, coming into and out of this existence. It's naturally elevated in our bodies, and if we ingest it in super physiological levels while we're experiencing this, we are able to connect to that source that we come into from birth and we go back to at death while we're here. And what value to have a real sense of what we come from while we're here and say, okay. So even though I get caught up in this shit sometimes, I can take a step back and say, yeah, but I get it. I know what's really going on. And that's so I can observe myself getting caught up and say, isn't that interesting? I'm really taking this seriously again. That's kind of fun.
And you know what? I think that's a good place to end it for today.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. You taught me a few things, and I'm definitely going to relay the questions to Neima to see what was happening when she was testing out the DMT. And she should be able to get back to you. You know, she has all your information and everything. So, Josh, thank you so much for coming on and dropping your knowledge with us. We super appreciate it. And for those interested, where can we find you or get in contact with you and check out your videos?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. That was it was very enjoyable for me to talk about these experiences. If people want to connect with me more, well, I think my YouTube channel would be a great place to start. So it's youtube.com/real Josh Hewett, and Hewett is Hewett. And I think if you search up my first DMT breakthrough experience, you'll see that on that'll pop up. It's one of the first ones that comes up in YouTube, which is awesome. And then you can also connect with me on Instagram at Barry Psychedelic Society. So I'm there. I'm getting just recently started this group of connecting with people locally here who are into spirituality and psychedelic exploration. And then finally on Facebook, facebook.com/Barry Psychedelic Society. And those are all great places to interact and connect with me. And I would look forward to engaging with other people who are on this journey inwards and to elevate their consciousness and also hear about other psychonauts and their experiences. I love hearing about psychedelic experiences. It's always very interesting and entertaining to me.
All right, and those links will be in the description below, along with links to Unexplained Possibilities Facebook page and Twitter, as well as Neima's Facebook page and Twitter. So be sure to check them all out, guys. Normally, this is where I would say Neima drop a little Neimaism on us, but since she's not here, Josh, would you do the honors of dropping little words of wisdom for us to take us out?
All right, no pressure. I guess all I would say is that all of these words that we're sharing are simply a way for us to relate knowledge into our expression and in our language, and really it's how you perceive it and how you take it in that matters the most. Each of us have our own individual way of taking in knowledge and observation, and when it ultimately comes down to it, releasing and the letting go of all of this stuff that really brings us to this state of awareness. So take in as much of this, enjoy it, enjoy the words and the knowledge and information, but then at some point, let your mind be empty. I guess I would leave it with that.
And with that said, remember guys, there are things that go bump in the night. Go ahead and trip balls with it. Bye everybody.
See you later.